Hi everyone. Today I'm here to blow your minds. So first the story. Growing up, my parents drilled into my head two very important concepts. First, you're going to be a doctor. No ifs, ands, or buts. And thank you for perpetuating the brown stereotype. And second, always stay close to your roots. And for that reason alone, I grew up believing that I was a plant. I would go out to a park and see all my long-lost brethren. I'd start talking to all the trees, and it didn't help that people called me down to earth because I'm short. To stay close to my roots, my family and I visited Bangladesh, my cultural roots, when I was 12 years old. And I didn't know much about the country except that it flooded a lot. But despite this, my family told me some awesome stories of their experiences in the country. For instance, my cousin would hide low in the rice paddies outside her school after school ended. And as an unsuspecting farmer or fisherman were to walk by, she would jump up and scare the curry out of these farmers or fishermen. No, literally, these farmers dropped the curry they brought for lunch. And I wanted to experience this Jungle Book adventure. But when I landed in Bangladesh, the first thing that caught my eye was the poverty. Poverty was as abundant as the plastic bottles littered everywhere. And many of the people that were in poverty were the sick and elderly. I remember leaving the airport, and the first thing I saw were people with no arms or limbs, and the only thing that followed me were their eyes, and that was very creepy. But many, many more of these people in poverty were children, no older than me. The severity of the situation didn't dawn upon me until I visited a park in the corner of the capital city where a group of small boys were selling flowers they had picked up from the same park to get something to eat. Their pursuit of basic human needs was absolutely humiliating, and that got me wondering, young people make up such a huge part of the poor, but why didn't they do anything about it? Were they lazy? Were they content with where they were? And after talking to them and doing research when I got home, I found out that these young people had all these creative solutions to Bangladesh's plethora of problems, but they didn't have the opportunities to react or act on these inclinations. Poverty silenced their voices, and as a result, the cycle of poverty continued. So one group, I found out, deprived these youth of these opportunities. This one group has harbored most of the world's wealth, caused most of the world's pain and suffering, and instituted most of the world's social injustices. Some examples include the Crusades, the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, the global economic crisis, the idolization of meritocracy. Need I say more? Logically, to address these problems would first mean identifying the root cause of them, the perpetrators behind the curtain. Who is part of this inclusive cohort? Well, you are part of this group. You all are part of this group. Almost everyone here is part of this group. The nation of adults. I am of the nation of young people under the age of 18, a group of people with their own ideas, passions, ready to make a change. And our worst contribution to society? Justin Bieber. As you can see in these examples, age is too often misconstrued with maturity, even though that these two things are totally different. Age is just a number, a ticking tally that transverses time and increments by one every year when we sing happy birthday in terrible unison. Maturity, on the other hand, is gained through our empirical experiences, from both the peaks of our successes to the valleys of our failures. I've met plenty of children who act like adults and plenty of adults who act like children. So in a world of ever-increasing problems like racism, stark economic disparities, and polluted rivers, why are we putting less emphasis on our young people to create change and charter the course of their own futures. Forward progress does not ensue without an external pressure, a catalyst. Nope, that's not a catalyst. And I believe kids now more than ever are this catalyst. I believe that if you give young people the tools they need, they will readily take it from you, develop their individual passions, and as a result, create collective change. Kids are a beacon of light in an ocean bogged down by the superficialities of reality. From birth, I think many kids wanted to be an astronaut or a professional athlete, or in my case, a Power Ranger, not a doctor. Specifically the red Power Ranger, because, let's be honest, all other colors were irrelevant. But as kids become teens, and as teens become adults, and as adults become old and senile, this innate curiosity wanes in favor of mundane realism. What once started as the sky's the limit becomes, do we even have enough fuel to get this rocket off the ground? More often than not, the pinpoint justifications and ramifications that real-life grown-up thinking, like paying taxes, require, suck the youth out of people. Like, case study, President Barack Obama. It seems that his cabinet of adults, I might add, advised him to overdose on Touch of Grey for Men after every press conference. But if Bro-Obama, we call him Bro-Obama in the youth community. If Bro-Obama's cabinet was filled with kids, his hair would probably look like this. Oh. Well, he had dreadlocks in that other picture. Kids are not worried about the questions of how or why, but they ask why not. Whenever I can coax politicians or other people of, importance out of the shadows, I have to remind them when discussing youth in any discourse that kids are people too. And this is a common example of how society views kids in a negative context. It presupposes that people like me are naive, bumbling nose pickers who are solemnly up to no good. But what we can learn from kids is that naivety and inexperience are not liabilities, but are assets. Let me ask you, how much have kids talked to you about life? Because I know as kids, we think about life a lot, especially the unpredictability of it. But for adults, unpredictability is dangerous. That's why we have insurance. That's why this building exists. But for kids, unpredictability is fun, it's adventure, it's discovery. When faced with a problem, there are many roads that you can take that converge at the same solution. But if you continuously follow the same road just because it's right, it desiccates innovation. In history, many of the ideas or discoveries that have sprung up come from people that challenge the status quo even though the right way existed. Kids are overflowing reservoirs, similarly, of innovation, of ideas, because they don't know any better. They don't follow the road that everyone else has taken. They don't even create their own roads. They just follow a dirt path. And that's the way I think it should be, because that is very ingrained in ideas and discovery. And this manifests itself in passion in the workforce. Passion in the workplace generally diminishes over time, and kids replenish this passion. Passion is a force that pushes us to accomplish the unaccomplishable, to make possible the seemingly impossible. But the problem we have with youth engagement today is that kids don't know what they're passionate in. And can we really blame them? For example, they sit in school, aka the biggest trifler of innovation, for many, many hours a day and come home and do more schoolwork. And this is supposed to make them active participants in society. There is no emphasis on discovery. In case in point, the model we have for youth engagement is broken. The current model is one that is top-down. The institutions of power and influence trickle down this real-life knowledge to kids who are at the bottom. But this will not work in the long run, because the purpose of this is to mold kids into tomorrow's leaders who fix tomorrow's problems. And while this might seem good at face value, this sets a terrible precedent and establishes a failing prerogative. First, how can any institution help kids if the institutions themselves are failing? For example, let's take Bangladesh for consideration. All these NGOs are flooding money into Bangladesh's economy, which is good, but this money is not being used properly because there's corruption, and it's not going into where it really needs to go. And secondly, when kids are adults, the world is a totally different place. So if they follow this model, then their views that they've learned are different from what the world really needs at that point in time. And thirdly, the culture that only adults can create change perpetuates, and that is neglecting 30% of the world's inhabitants. In corporate lingo, you'd be neglecting a huge client base. I strongly believe that up to a certain point, top-down models of youth engagement lose their effectiveness. Yes, kids around the world do not have basic needs, such as proper sanitation and education. And yes, I believe that those governments and other high institutions of influence, that is the cheapest way to give kids these resources. But I don't think that's the best way. We should not look to any organization to help kids in that capacity. Our goal should not be to groom kids to solve tomorrow's problems when they're adults, but to help kids solve today's problems in the here and now. We need to focus on a bottom-up model of youth engagement where kids are in the forefront of action. Kids helping governments. And more importantly, kids helping other kids. And what would this model of youth engagement look like? Well, it's not there right now, but I work for an organization called Greening Forward. And it's an organization, a nonprofit organization, that is staffed exclusively by young people. And what we do is we fund environmental projects, and we provide education to other young people so that they can follow their passions. And it's very, very cool to see young people helping other young people. There's this connection that you find that you don't find anywhere else. So, through this model, influence is not lost as you go up, it's amplified. Do your organizations and institutions a favor by bringing kids on board and giving them the keys to the car. Not figuratively, of course, because that's illegal. But young people are ready and willing to be the driver's seat of their own lives. All you have to do is pull that seat out for them and let them take the wheel. Thank you.